So, as you know, here in the US, our agents work 24/7. Can you help us set expectations for our agents and our clients who are looking to sell or purchase real estate internationally?
Sure. So cliche, but patience is a virtue. And to your point, we are a microwave culture. Things are fast, here in the US, and it's just not that way everywhere else in the world. Island time, people joke about it, but it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Absolutely. And the other thing is too, that people in other parts of the world are really serious about their vacation and holiday time. So you have to respect that. You have to understand that, if it's the weekend, if it's the holiday, they aren't going to respond. And it's not a case of, being disrespectful. It's just a case that that's culturally how it's, other countries operate. So to your point, response time and everything can be really different from place to place. And one of the things I always advise is that when you're working with someone in another country, ask them their favorite way to communicate. We're such an email-centric culture, but that's not the norm in a lot of parts of the world. And to the point about being on vacation or holiday, a lot of companies, particularly in Europe, they shut off employees' email. So they really do take that time off. So,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, that'd be like a dream come true.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of being lazy or unresponsive. It's just not a practice. So try to get into the mindset when you're working with another country, think the way they think and, respond and communicate the way they want to communicate.
I'm
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to mention, as you know, Sophia Baptista from JLL visited with us over the summer. She did suggest or recommend that using the WhatsApp app because that's the way that they all communicate.
Yeah.
So that might be another hint or tip.
Yeah, and that's not hyperbole. I couldn't do my job without WhatsApp. I mean,
Okay.
it's funny because it's in some countries, a lot of Latin American countries, that's all they use. Like you won't get a response with email. So yeah, if you're working with, ask them if they have a WhatsApp number, and it's free, and it's really a quick way to communicate. And they prefer getting a quick text because a lot of times they'll copy that text and put it in translator if English is their second language. So you're really just making things easier for them by asking them what way is their favorite way to communicate.
Okay. And another question, because of how real estate varies from country to country, what type of information do you suggest that we should be getting from our clients, particularly seller clients, because they have real estate to sell versus a buyer client beyond, what can you afford?
Right. Right. Well, sellers can present some challenges. I'd say to use like Mexico as an example. Companies in Mexico won't even discuss selling a property with you until you can show that you have the deed, the title, that you have all your paperwork. Mexico has incredibly strict anti-money laundering laws. So don't be surprised if you've got, somebody who's trying to sell a property in Mexico, if the agent says straight away they need that info before they even get into the discussion. Some places in other parts of the world, I would say just make sure you have as much information as possible as the exact location. You and I were talking about yesterday how some places in the world don't necessarily have exact postal addresses.
Correct.
In that case, just get as much information as you can about the location. One thing I run into a lot is that sometimes people think that the agent in the destination is going to do all this homework to try to look up a property, or if they've inherited a property that they've never seen and stuff like that. Just think of it in the reverse of, if this were someone coming to your town, would you do all this research without knowing for certain that the people owned this property? So it's just, kind of keeping in mind how you do your work and what your expectations would be from a client. You'd want to have as much information as possible. So I'd say ask as many questions as you can. Find out the description, like, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, if it's a parcel of land, find out how big the parcel is, if it's developed for, if you can develop on that land, or if it's, whatever. Ask as many questions as you can. Photos are a bonus. A lot of companies, especially if it's, they can kind of help, it's sort of in their area, but it might be more enticing if they can see photos of the property and know it's worth their while to make the trip over to go see it. So
Sure.
as much info as you can possibly get. And again, just keeping in mind that they will require paperwork at some point. So whatever country it might be.
And you actually brought up a really good point with our call yesterday. The other thing is ask the client if they had listed their home previously or reached out because of the small community, real estate communities.
Yeah. Yeah, I every day I'm surprised how small the world is. It's sometimes, you know, your clients, and it's kind of a sin of omission, but they might not mention to you that they've talked to other real estate agents.
No, that doesn't happen.
It never happens, right? But certainly ask, because the other part of that is that exclusivity is not a given. In many parts of the world, you know, people can list their property with multiple real estate agents. And then in some parts of the world, the agent doesn't even have to have any sort of credentials to sell real estate, which is kind of terrifying. My 13-year-old niece could sell real estate in Costa Rica, just as an aside. But you know, so you really want to make sure that the clients haven't been working with someone else, that it's not listed with someone else. It's not a given. And the one of the things I run into all the time is that referring agent might assume because this client's reached out and asked for help that it's not listed, and that's not the case. So make sure to get that. The other thing to keep in mind is that if there's a client that wants to sell a property and you just know in your gut as an agent, you are a professional in this industry, that the price that they're looking for is not realistic, keep in mind that they might have already talked to other agents shopping around to get the answer that they want. And certainly all of your agents have dealt with that, where they have clients that think their property is worth more than it is.
Yeah.
Just know that that same thing happens. Like you said, the world is, you know, the industry is small, and they may have already floated this past 5 agents who said, you're never going to get that price. So just, you know, put your, you know, your gut instincts on the case and say, is this a realistic price? And just ask us if, you know, we can vet out the situation and see what other properties are going for in that area.
Okay, great. And then your buyer clients.
Mm-hmm. So I think the most important thing is to make sure that they're serious. I always joke around that House Owners International is like the bane of my existence, because it makes it look like buying a house in a foreign country is so easy.
So easy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But really try to make sure your clients are serious. Make sure they have a date to visit the location.
Very important.
Yeah, and find out if they speak the language and if they've been there before. Whoever the destination agent is, just as you know, your agents would, you can't help a person decide where they want to live, you know. And I honestly, I got a request earlier this week that they were looking in 6 different countries, not even like a city in a specific country. I'm like, it's too broad. So again, going back to the seller questions, you know, find out as much as you can. What's their budget? When are they planning on visiting? What are their housing needs? Do they speak the language? Are they going to require any type of financing? Because in some countries, they wouldn't be able to obtain financing. So this is all good information for us to get. The other thing that is a hot topic these days is if a lot of people think they're going to scoop up a property in another country to use it for an Airbnb or VRBO. The reality is a lot of countries are cracking down.
Good
Portugal
point.
had this, as you brought up, you know, JLL earlier. Portugal, white hot the past few years in terms of buying there because the Golden Visa program. Well, because it was so popular and so many non-Portuguese were buying homes there, they had all of these transient, you know, visitors coming and staying in these properties that non-Portuguese people bought. And it created a real problem. And so the locals pushed back and said, no, you know, this can't happen. So there are a lot of cities around the world right now that are cracking down on Airbnb purchases. So just keep that in mind with your clients. That's another thing we want to research before they got too far ahead of themselves.
Okay, great. We had a referral the client was looking in Costa Rica, a beach town.
Mhm.
And when we sit back and think about that, would be similar to somebody saying, I want to live in Florida on the beach. Well, which
They have a
coast
lot of
or
beach there.
right, exactly. But it's same information no matter where you are. It's a real estate, still real estate, right?
Yeah, exactly. And just think of what information
You
as
would
an
want.
agent. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's really good.
Lastly, this is all really great information. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Can you share any tips for our agents who may want to expand their business to include international referrals, or suggestions on how to maybe find those international referrals?
Sure. I'd say be visible. Certainly coming to our events, and I'm not saying that just as a plug, it's a reality.
Absolutely.
Getting to meet fellow members from other countries, that's huge. And social media, as much as we all might love it or hate it, it's here to stay. And some agents are just whip smart about the way they leverage social media.
Sure.
It's an agent that comes to mind. He's at all of our global events, which is really impressive. And he talks to other agents and he promotes their listings on his feeds on Instagram and Facebook. And he's so visible. And I think that's a great way to let people know. And it's also just on your own social media feed, letting people know that you have these connections. They're going to think of you when they might be considering buying a place, outside of not just your general area, but outside of the US. So visibility is key.
Okay. And now that you mentioned the symposium, where would the 2023 Global Symposium be held?
I wish I knew. I'm not trying to
Oh,
be. I honestly, I wish there were a few options being floated, but
okay.
yeah, I honestly no idea.
So to be determined
Yeah,
then.
exactly. I can't wait to
Okay.
find out.
Okay. Beth, thank you so much for your time.
My
As
pleasure.
I said, she is our global referral guru, and as a little side note, an excellent lemon bar cookie maker. So
I guess I need to send some more your way.
I don't want to share with everyone. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye.